Well, we've just come through the 10 Commandments, 4 commandments as the relationship of man to God, 6 commandments of man to man. Now, realistically, even though there are 10, they could be boiled down to 2. The first one would be to cover 4. Love the Lord thy God with all your heart, with all your mind, and with all your soul. And the second would cover the last 6, which is treat others as you would have them treat you. And nevertheless, God gave 10 very specific commandments, easy to do, and those things would be very apparent when they were broken. So now we have a picture of an awesome God. Beginning at verse 18, we have thunder, lightning flashes, sound of a trumpet, mountain smoking, and the people trembled. And the people said to Moses, Moses, you talk to us. We'll listen to you. If God speaks to us, we might die. That's a reverence for the power and the awesomeness of God. Moses' response back was very clear. Do not be afraid. God came to test you. And the fear of him is to keep you from sin. Now, you got to admit, when you were being raised as a child, one of the things that kept you from doing things wrong was the fear of the consequences, because you had parents who could punish you, and you had an awesome responsibility to keep their commandments, because you knew that they could punish you for whatever you did. This is exactly the relationship that God wanted to have with his people. Here are the rules. Keep the rules. I'll bless you. Break the rules. There'll be a consequence. An awesome God who we're to reverence and to respect. Moses approached the cloud, and there he went into the cloud, and God spoke to him again. And he said, I don't want you to have any gods made of silver or images made of gold. I don't want a fancy altar, just an earthen altar with stones not carved, just natural stones. Well, why did God want such a simple altar? Why not have gold and silver? I remember one time we had a pastor who used to say, nothing's too good for God. The problem is when we start to embellish our altars, or we start to make these cut objects, we tend to start to worship them instead of God. And God doesn't want a lot of fanciness. He doesn't need a lot of fanciness, because then we start to worship the images and the fanciness instead of him. Maybe we need to cut back a little bit on how we do our church today, huh? Maybe we don't need coffee bars. Maybe we don't need fancy spires reaching into the sky, elegant backlit crosses, or perhaps we don't need hand-painted scenery behind our baptistries. Perhaps we start to worship our church instead of worshiping God. Nevertheless, he made it very clear he didn't want a fancy altar, and he said the altar was going to be a place of sacrifice. There was going to be a cost in that sacrifice. Sheep and oxen, and these would be sacrificed on the altar, and it would be a remembrance. And he asked for a remembrance every place where he made his name known. And he said, when you make an altar there, I'll come and I'll bless you. Well, there's one other thing that he says here. It's quite interesting. I've never heard anybody preach about it. But he says, when you make the altar, don't make it so high that you need steps going up to it, because I don't want you to show your nakedness. Now, that may not make a lot of sense today when we think about men who wear pants, but remember the priests wore robes. And if they went up the stairs, those that were below them could see their nakedness. And because so much of the idol worship that was done during those days involved immorality, sexuality, sensuality, and nakedness, God didn't want any part of that. He didn't want worship to become anything that would be sensual, anything that would distract us from spiritual thinking into sensual thinking. It's one of the reasons I've never liked interpretive dance. So often churches that I've seen, not mine, but so often I've seen churches who have young females in leotards or veils doing interpretive dancing. I know that they mean well, and I know that they don't intend for it to be sensual, but I am afraid that many times the males watching young females with shapely bodies in outfits that are quite revealing, doing interpretive dance, might well fall into this category of don't build any stairs going up to the altar. I don't want anything to move from spiritual to sensual. Interesting thought, I think. Maybe if your church uses interpretive dance, I've offended you. I didn't intend to offend, but I would have you reevaluate whether or not that's really a good part of worship. And that's my thought for the day. God bless you and have a great day.